Well, for those of you that are not quite as familiar with the Chevrolet Performance Crate Engine offerings, on page 11 and 12 in the 2024 Performance Catalog, we have the complete family listings. The Gen 4 LS, Gen 5 LT, LSX, and then, of course, our traditional small block and big block V8s on those pages, along with recommended transmissions. So if you have any questions about size, if it's a swap situation, you may be interested in weight and, of course, the cubic inch. But more importantly, power and torque ratings are listed here so you can tell a quick, at a glance shopping menu, if you will, for the customer that doesn't know what he's after. Now, the one thing that's a little bit different with Chevrolet Performance is the way that they break the various options down. The aftermarket you may be more familiar with a term called the short block. Chevrolet Performance has had that for 100 years, but it's always been called a partial, and a partial in that is not quite the same as offered in a typical aftermarket, but it has basically block, crank, and rods and pistons in it. Does not have a camshaft, so there's a lot to add to this basic partial engine. The base engine is more directly comparable to a long block, which most people understand in the aftermarket. The long block is complete with camshaft, has oil pan and valve cover tin on it, and basically everything but the intake manifold and the fuel delivery system on a base engine. Now, if they want to step up to the deluxe, that does include the intake manifold, fuel delivery system. It used to be carburation, but now we have some fuel injection options and distributor for ignition. So that is the deluxe. Now, if you have a customer, and this is more and more common today, that is looking for everything, a one-stop shop, is the turnkey option. The turnkey takes the deluxe and adds the front drive to it. So all the accessory drive, serpentine belt, all Chevrolet Performance, if you will, GM genuine parts, is added to the deluxe to develop the turnkey. Turnkey is not available in every engine, but the most popular engines do have a turnkey option. This is for the customer that maybe is not as familiar or proficient, and he wants to have most of his work done before he starts the installation. So, stepping one step up the ladder to a complete installation, we have the Connect and Cruise offering, which is a Chevrolet Performance unique option. That includes the transmission and usually if it's in the case of fuel injection, all the electrical controllers and the boxes to make the transmission talk to the engine, and everything works as an integrated package. It's not available for every engine, but we do have a fairly lengthy offering there, especially for late model Gen 4 and Gen 5 engines. Becoming very popular. It's got all the hardware, all the nuts and bolts. As everything, we have the little asterisk on there. Some work required. It's not a complete drop-in. I don't want to mislead you. There are certainly some base knowledge requirements for installing this package, but the package includes everything, including the controller, wiring harness, the transmission controller, engine controller. All of those things are designed and calibrated to work as a running package. Now, the most popular, if you will, today engines, there's been a change over the last decade or so from carburation, as we shift to fuel injection. And correspondingly, we have the most engine and transmission options with Connect and Cruise in the LS and LT, Gen 4 and Gen 5 engines. So you've got a multitude of options starting on page 41 in the 2024 Performance Catalog. You can get 4, 6, 8, and even 10-speed transmissions, depending on the engine that you are installing. Not every transmission will work with every engine because of the electronics, but it's a very extensive offering. It's very complete. We show all of the transmissions, including a transmission installation kit if you need that. to mate the engine and trans together, as well as recommended torque converters. Now, some engines, especially in the Gen 5 engines, 8 and 10 speeds, come with the torque converter. So you don't have to make a decision except for your stall speed. The, we do have individual part numbers there that would dictate which stall speed you can order the transmission with. So it's a really nice package. There is a factory rebate available with the Connect and Cruise, but the most important feature I'd have to say about this is it takes the guesswork about what parts are compatible. As you're working in the garage on the weekend, say, "Oh man, I didn't know I needed that." Well, that is included when you buy the Connect and Cruise package. So the EROD LT1 and LT4 systems are also available as a Connect and Cruise option. So if you have a car that's being built in one of the states that strictly adheres to the carbon emissions laws, this may be an option you want to pursue. It is complete with the CATs, transmission, controllers. It has all the gas evaporation system components, as well as the dual CATs and exhaust. So it really is a one package, if you will, one part number package for those two engines. LT1 and LT4 Gen 5 engines only are currently approved. So when you think about Chevrolet performance over the years, many people naturally think about 350 small blocks, 427 big blocks, but that's, if you will, old school performance. New school performance actually started already back in 1997 already with the LS1 and the new architecture along with the port fuel injection. So we've had two generations since then, the LS Gen 4, actually Gen 3 and then Gen 4, and now currently the direct injection with Gen 5 engines. So the LS family is, I guess, primarily the workhorse. It's the modern day 350. It's port fuel injected. We did have various options over the years of some engines that were dry sumps. We always take the factory production engine and usually modify it and work off of that base. But again, most of those engines have been conventional wet sump engines. And that's what the industry has completely embraced. And you sell a lot of those parts today. The last few years with the Gen 5, we moved up in technology. A lot of OE is driven by emissions, and that was a big factor in moving to Gen 5 with direct injection. I will say that even though the cubic inch and the designations are close, nothing interchanges. In their wisdom, I don't know the details, but the two engine families are not compatible. They do not interchange components. So since our last update, Chevrolet Performance is a dynamic organization. Things are always changing based upon original equipment engines that are the foundation of a lot of the performance product line. So I also would be remiss if I didn't mention some things that have gone away. You're still going to get questions that come in from customers that have the catalog from 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So you need to be aware. We touched earlier that the LS is no longer available as an EROD package. All of the other LSs, let's be clear, the most popular Gen 4, LS3, and the derivatives of that are still available and are very, very good sellers, as you probably know. The LSA engine, which was a supercharged 6.2 for the CTS back a decade ago, is no longer available. There is no stock. The blower is available. It's very expensive as a standalone part, but the engine as a package is no longer available. Another one that I would mention now, I'm going to take just a little sidebar. In the development of Gen 4, we at Chevrolet Performance developed a custom race package under the LSX brand. Now, that's an original Chevrolet Performance brand, but it's used generically now for race stuff. The LSX in our world, if you will, was a cast iron purpose-built design. And we had early on, we had a couple engines that were long blocks that were developed to utilize the high strength when used in boosted applications. So, be it turbocharged or supercharged, we had two applications, the LSX B8, which was good for up to 8 pounds of boost, and that is no longer available. More importantly, the LSX B15, which has all forged internals and otherwise uses the LSX cast iron block, is still available and is a very, very good piece. But the earlier design, the B8 design, which was limited to 8 pounds of boost, is no longer available. Also, not in the listing anymore is the LS9 Complete. That was a ZR1 Corvette supercharged engine, available as a crate engine for some time. It was a dry sump engine, and it is no longer available. Moving to the Gen 5 engines, the direct injection engines, we've only had one engine that was introduced, and then because it was taken out of production, no longer available, and that's the LT5. So the LT5 was a 1 year only engine. It was 750 horsepower, direct injection. It was had an auxiliary fuel system to actually add more fuel to the big blower. It is no longer available. It was a one and done. There may be some out there. There's a lot of demand, but we at Chevrolet Performance do not have that option available any longer. So as I mentioned earlier, the Gen 4, the LS engines are now out of production as far as being installed in a vehicle on the GM production line. And we've moved on to the Gen 5. Now the LT1, LT4, you're very familiar with, but the newest additions to the Gen 5 family are the L8T, and now we have an L8P. Let me tell you about the difference. So the L8T, designed for truck engines, and the L8P performance engines are essentially the same internally, the difference being primarily the induction system focused on the camshaft changes. We also have an option if someone wants to run a aftermarket manifold. The L8T is available as a long block engine. It's too early in the game to know how popular that's going to be. At this point, there's no aftermarket manifold through Chevrolet Performance to finish off that long block, so you'll have to search elsewhere for that if you so desire. The thing to keep in mind for these engines, as all the Gen 5, is that because of the electronics, your transmission options are somewhat limited. You can use the 6-speed 6L80 or the 10-speed 10L90E transmission. Both come with controllers that are calibrated for use with the respective Gen 5 engines. So again, as a connect and cruise package, you can easily put together a Gen 5 engine along with the transmission that I just mentioned and have a complete runner in this new technology. Something to keep in mind for conversations with your customers if they're making a selection between a LS engine Gen 4 and a Gen 5 engine LT is the extra weight that the iron block in the L8T and the L8P bring. It's somewhere under 100 pounds, but it's going to put more weight on the nose of the car, which is going to affect the handling. So just a word of caution that the customer should think about that. The iron block that's used in the LSX series, Gen 4 LSX race block, usually not a consideration because that's usually in a race car, purpose built, and the weight is allocated accordingly. In everyday street car, this may be an issue. Depending on what the chassis is, early, it's going to have a whole lot more effect on an early model Vega or Chevy 2 or something with a very light front end versus a late model full body car. So just keep that in mind and make sure that the customer makes the right selection. As with all of the Gen 4 and Gen 5 engines that Chevrolet Performance offers, we do have a controller package that is custom calibrated for each respective engine. So the L8T and the L8P have dedicated controllers with the corresponding calibration for that engine. So keep that in mind as well. So also new for 2024 is a long block offering that's very, very narrow in its use, but high in demand. And that's the 525 RLB, or Racing Long Block, which is basically the CT525 LS3 derivative, only as a long block with no intake. The engine is, the main difference in this engine now is it does include forged pistons. In the application, as you probably are aware, the conventional LS3 and derivatives have a cast hypereutectic piston. So because of the demands of high RPM racing, the Circle Track engine, which has become very popular, was upgraded with a forged piston. We now have that long block to service that market as well. This engine, the 502605 as we call it, is the same physical external dimensions as all the big blocks from all the years past. It bolts right in, whether you've got a muscle car, whether you've got maybe a race car that's used a big block, you don't want to change anything, this engine may be the answer for that. It's upgraded with new CNC cylinder heads, camshaft, and higher compression forged aluminum pistons. All the internals in this 502605 engine are forged, by the way. As I said, everything is dimensionally the same as the big block. It has a unique identification. You can tell at a glance the difference between the two. It comes with the new style, if you will, big block valve cover, first introduced a couple of years ago on the ZZ632. The modern design is very unique, very durable cast aluminum. So, as opposed to some of the race-oriented sheet metal designs, this is a very robust valve cover design. It differentiates from the ZZ632 in that it does come in black as opposed to the orange available on the 632. So the SP502605 is a good consideration if you want to upgrade. Maybe you still have an OE big block in your car. You want to put it aside. Keep it as a numbers matching option. Regardless, it is the same, as I said, dimensionally the same, and at a price point that I think you'll find very attractive if you want to make a small upgrade and not make the big leap to the ZZ632 or other options. So not to be forgotten is that by using this package, we also have available the options to make your own connect and cruise. It's available with the 4LE5 to absorb the higher torque of this big block, as well as the 6-speed manual, the Magnum 6-speed that we have. So even though there's no electronic control on the fuel induction system per se, the package can be put together and build your own connect and cruise. In addition to the RLB long block that I mentioned just a little while ago with forged internals, we have added a stock block, if you will, conventional LS3 480, 376 480, and the 525 with the original cast hypereutectic internals. This is an option for somebody that's got a lot of miles on an engine, he's damaged an engine, whatever the situation. We do have that long block option available. Please caution your customer that that does not include any induction system. So no intake, fuel rails, any of that fuel delivery system will have to be considered separately if you choose the long block option. I want to be clear when talking about the LS376 525 long block and the new RLB. The conventional, if you will, 525 block has the factory style pan and pistons. It has cast hypereutectic pistons. The RLB, the long block for the race engine, does have forged pistons. So differentiate between those two. They're probably going to be somewhat generic in conversations. 525 is not 525. You need to be very clear as to what the customer needs and wants. There's another long block that I should mention at this time, not widely used, but still a certain segment of the market really like the LS9, which is available in the C6 Corvette. That long block is available. That's a dry sump long block, no intake manifold or blower, of course, but all the other goodies, all the titanium rods, forged pistons, everything else that was in the original LS9. That long block is available as a service block. One thing that you and your customers should be aware of is that the 2022 and up LT1 and LT4 controllers have a different connection than the pre-2022. So if you're dealing with a late model, make sure that you know which engine and order the controller kit accordingly.